Good afternoon, my beautiful babes and babettes. I'm your resident active advocate. The reason why I did not have a video for you yesterday is because, je suis un petit jackass, by which I mean I'm not very smart. I 1,000,000,000% forgot to make a video. I'm in the shower doing my hair and going, I didn't make a video, did I? Okay, so that's my explanation for that. I'm sorry. Getting back to it, to be fair, I have been avoiding this one a bit. Sorry. Yeah, because they're talking about the Catholic Church, and I'm really mad at the Catholic Church right now. We are reading the Truth and Reconciliation Commission under currently the subheading of Church Apologies. We're gonna have fun today, but we're getting out of that subheading quite quickly, as far as I can see. It's just that number 61 is quite long, so this is going to be enjoyable for the whole family. Woohoo. Okay, maximizing the document now. Okay, document maximized. Moving my chair in so I can read. Hurrah. Okay. We call upon the church parties to the settlement agreement in collaboration with survivors and representatives of Aboriginal organizations to establish permanent funding to Aboriginal people for 1. Community-controlled healing and reconciliation projects. 2. Community-controlled culture and language revitalization projects. 3. Community-controlled education and relationship-building projects. 4. Regional dialogues for Indigenous spiritual leaders and youth to discuss Indigenous spirituality, self-determination, and reconciliation. As to my knowledge, the church has not done this, but I am not 100% aware because I was able to take a course at a Catholic-run university in Indigenous spirituality. Irony of ironies, at a Catholic university is where I pretty much gave up on Catholicism, but that's because I was educated in other religions. That and things like these, the residential schools, quotation marks, and so on and so forth. But to my knowledge, this has not happened, even though there is funding available, at least in my province, for people, and outsiders included, to be educated in Indigenous spirituality. However, what I learned, I don't know what nation it would be specific to. I don't know whether it would be cross-cultural, because as I have said, there are upwards of 500 or 600 different Indigenous nations in Canada alone. All right, now there would be more than that if we factor in America. I don't imagine that spirituality would be, cross-culturally cohesive. That was a lot of C sounds. I don't think that, say, an Inuit person would practice their spirituality in the same way as, say, someone from the Seminole Nation, way down in Florida and Oklahoma. So we're talking South, right? But I don't actually know. I have read a few creation stories from different nations, and a few of them are similar, but they don't have the exact same details. But the point here is that the people are asking for a nation-to-nation and religion-to-religion relationship, because not only were the cultures, the languages, the identities of the people suppressed by the residential schools and colonialism, their religions were stripped away from them as well because they were considered to be, bad. I'm not going to use any slurs that my countrymen came up with. It was only recently, actually, that I learned that Irish people, and I am basically half Irish, contributed to colonialism on this continent. That's not good, especially since the Irish themselves were colonized. So a little bit of hypocrisy there. Oh boy. So, okay. What we need to do, therefore, is not only to provide funding, but to provide avenues of communication between different religious mindsets, because I fully support the idea of religious diversity. Please don't force everyone into the same religion. Please, 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 please. That's really bad for people. It's also really bad for culture. It's even bad for language. So communication is key. Honesty is key. Openness is key. And until we can establish those kinds of relationships together, we're not going to be able to move forward. Not with the TRC, not with relationships in general. So that's where we need to pick up the slack as settlers. Speaking as a settler. Next. Oh, thank the gods, new heading. Okay. Education for reconciliation. I like education, which is why I'm making this series. All right. Number 62. We call upon the federal, provincial, and territorial governments in consultation and collaboration with survivors, Aboriginal peoples, and educators to 1. Make age-appropriate curriculum on residential schools, treaties, and Aboriginal peoples' historical and contemporary contributions to Canada, a mandatory education requirement for kindergarten to grade 12 students. I will explain why I'm laughing about that. 2. Provide the necessary funding to post-secondary institutions to educate teachers on how to integrate Indigenous knowledge and teaching methods in the classrooms. 3. Provide the necessary funding to Aboriginal schools to utilize Indigenous knowledge and teaching methods in classrooms. 4. Establish senior level positions in government in the assistant deputy minister level or higher dedicated to Aboriginal content in education. All right, so this has not happened. This has very, very clearly not happened. At least as of when I attended elementary school. Now, okay, bear in mind, I was born in 1990, so I attended elementary school from, would have been 1995 to 2003 or 2004. I can't remember which. But we had not made anywhere near the degree of progress that we have made now, but we still have way further to go in order to establish real education on the histories and the colonial role in those histories. There is not a single country on Earth that has not been touched in some way by colonialism. I want to make that perfectly clear. Canada, just as bad as anywhere else, and worse in many regards. Basically, when I was in school, what I learned about Indigenous peoples, Tecumseh, good guy, Louis Riel, bad guy. And that's basically where it stopped. I know for a fact now, Louis Riel, not a bad guy. He stood with the Métis Nation in Manitoba against the government encroachment upon their land, and he was hanged therefore, or killed. I can't remember whether he was hanged, but he was killed for insurrection. As to Tecumseh, literally that is the only thing I know about him, except that I believe he stood with the English and they sold him down the creek. It did not turn out well for him. I'm fairly certain that he died in battle. And of course he's elevated as this great heroic figure, but beyond just a symbol, you don't know anything about the guy. So that was the extent of my education. Leave down in the comments, please and thank you, whether you got more education than that. Because as I say, I went to elementary school, quite a while ago now. I'm getting old, people, I'm getting old. She's going to be 31 in a few days. Yes, she is. Oh dear. I will make a video on my birthday, but it's going to be not this. So, yeah, that's my plan. Anyway, we will see what happens. Maximizing the document. Boop, boop. Okay. Call to action number 63. We call upon the Council of Ministers of Education, Canada, to maintain an annual commitment to Aboriginal education issues, including 1. Developing and implementing kindergarten to grade 12 curriculum and leading resources on Aboriginal peoples in Canadian history, and the history and legacy of residential schools. I'm sorry, I can't read today, apparently. 2. Sharing information and best practices on teaching curriculum related to residential schools and Aboriginal history. 3. Building student capacity for intellectual understanding, empathy, and mutual respect. Yes, please. 4. Identifying teacher training needs relating to the above. All right, by the way, I forgot to mention this. In a world religions class I took, I believe it was in 11th grade. Now, bear in mind, this was at a Catholic high school, okay? We watched a movie called Where the Spirit Lives, which is about residential schools in Saskatchewan. And, but it's basically a first-person story. And you see some of the atrocities that occurred at these places. My teacher, I remember him saying to us, and you see kids being beaten. You see, or it's implied that a girl is being raped by the priests who run the school. You see kids run away or attempt to run away, and then they're brought back and punished. You see a guy arrested for defending one of the younger students. He's arrested by the RCMP, which is Canada's federal police. All right? The depiction in the movie, though, my teacher said to us that someone had said about the teachers in that movie. I mean, it's fairly accurate to the treatment that the kids really would have received, but these people are too nice. Okay? Go watch this movie because I found it was pretty good. Horrific, but good in terms of educating yourself. But just remember, those people are too nice. Okay? So in the real world, it would have been a lot worse than what you see in the movie. The whole idea of learning about residential schools, and the reason why I talk about them on this channel, is the idea of developing empathy. Because, okay, sympathy is feeling for, like, oh, I feel so bad for you. Empathy is feeling with. I feel bad and I want to be part of your bad feeling too. And I think that that is more powerful than sympathy. It's more powerful than just saying, well, what Justin Trudeau says. We feel so bad, and now we're walking away. I don't like cowards. I try not to be a coward myself, which is why I talk about these things. And I think that cowardice contains the opposite of empathy within itself. So it might not be a polar opposite, but like backing off from potentially the pain that you have caused, backing off from another person's pain when they need you or when they could need you, that to me is a manifestation of cowardice. I've said before on this channel, though, and I believe this too, we need to let Indigenous people draw the terms of how those relationships go, because us as settlers, they might not want us around after yet another school has been dug up. And these numbers just keep getting higher and higher and higher. I can fully understand any Indigenous person who doesn't want me around, even for as empathetic as I attempt to be. It's not my pain. That's the thing. It's not my pain. It's not my struggle. It is my responsibility to talk about it and to educate other white people, other settlers about it. That is my responsibility. But if they don't want me near them when they are suffering in that regard, just back off, pretty much. Back off, but do your job. All right, so next, maximizing the document. Hello, top of my head. All right, 64. We call upon all levels of government that provide public funds to denominational schools to require such schools to provide an education on comparative religious studies, which must include a segment on Aboriginal spiritual beliefs and practices developed in collaboration with Aboriginal elders. That is freaking brilliant, okay? But again, I was educated in the 90s and early 2000s, at least in elementary school. We heard nothing about Indigenous spirituality in elementary school, and almost nothing about it in high school. All right? Mind you, again, I went to a Catholic elementary school and a Catholic high school. I also went to 2 Catholic universities, and as I say, irony of ironies, that is where I lost my Catholicism. But it was not until university that I received more of an education on Indigenous spirituality. And I'm really, really happy that I got into the field of world religions, of comparative religion, because religion involves people, it involves culture, it involves history, it involves geography, all these different fields. Philosophy, of course, being my great love. All these different fields encompassed into this one thing, but it's not one thing, it's huge, it's vast. And this is me talking about the World Religions Program. If you have a World Religions Program at your university, take it, do it. But it was not until university that I came to know very much about Indigenous cultures at all. And it was not until, well, now, long after university, that I started to educate myself. The problem is with the publicly funded schools in Canada, I don't know whether it is exclusively Catholic schools that are funded by public money, but it is mostly Catholic schools that are funded by public money, because I believe Canada is officially Protestant, so this is a way of giving the Catholics a leg up, I guess. But it is government policy that Catholic schools be publicly funded. And the problem with this, therefore, is that they're not sticking to what's being put down here. The TRC, I do believe, was written after I was in at least elementary school. I had to check the date when this thing was written. I keep forgetting to do that. But this is one which I am almost certain has not been implemented yet. I would love it to be implemented, especially in elementary school. Especially in elementary school. Because then we can work through the whole idea of settlers are automatically horrible people. That's not what we should be taking away from this. What we should be taking away from this is the reality of the fact that these things happened, and the reality of the fact that, yes, the settlers are to blame. But blame and guilt can lead to action. I have said before, I will continue to say this, if guilt does not lead to action, then it's a bad thing. If guilt leads to action, then it's a good thing. And if you do not know the history, then you can't do anything about it. Feel guilty or otherwise. Really, feelings are important, actions are more important. It depends on how you act on your feelings, right? Which is another reason why I'm doing this series, because I look into the horrors of the things that have happened and go, why is no one talking about this? My God. And I really, really like this document for another reason. So there's this, and there's the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Persons, which I love, and it was very pretty. And we're going to do that next, because for some reason I am interested in legal documents, even though I am not at all interested in being a lawyer or, anything along those lines. Okay, maximizing the document. Whoop. Hello, pretty document. You are pretty. Yes, you are. All right, 65. Last one for today, and last one under this heading. All right. We call upon the federal government through the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, and in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples, post-secondary institutions and educators, and the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation and its partner institutions to establish a national research program with multi-year funding to advance understanding of reconciliation. That is a lot of words to say a small idea. Educate the kids on reconciliation efforts, basically. Again, I don't think that's being done. It might be attempted in the universities, but none of these courses, by the way, have been made mandatory. In high school, when I took the world religions course there, that wasn't mandatory, I don't think, but I can't remember. And then the 2 courses I took on Indigenous spirituality in university, again, not mandatory. Interesting, but not mandatory. It is, as I say, a very important part of our history to understand, and the TRC did say above to make these things actually mandatory, and I agree with that. It's not a suppression of, oh, I don't get to learn this, I have to learn about this. That whole mindset. Do not approach this with that mindset, because if you do, you're just going to say, they're a bunch of rabble-rousers and they're trying to cause problems. No, trying to fix problems. And I want to be among those who try to fix problems. You can learn whatever you want beyond these things, but it is important to learn these things. And I do think, I'm in line with the TRC here, I think it should be made mandatory. It's mandatory in grade 1 to grade 9 in Canada for us to learn French. My French is crap. My French is terrible. I do believe that New Brunswick is our only officially bilingual province. And New Brunswick, this big. Ontario, this big. Right? Ontario is bigger than Texas. So just for some scaling for Americans watching this. Yeah, my French education was poor. I mean, I know that my teachers tried their best, obviously, but none of them were francophone. None of them, I don't think, were very fluent in French, unfortunately. So, okay, if French is going to be mandatory, which it is, you may as well try your best with it. But why is French mandatory, but none of this is? This is a huge aspect of our history. It is actually, the early history of Canada. This is how we wrote that history. Because history is written by the victors. Yeah, but I don't want to be a victor. I want to be someone who works in collaboration with the losers, she says in massive quotation marks. My God. They only lost because we forced them to. And they're still alive, which means that they didn't lose. They're just, trying to get back what they deserve. And I want to help, which is why I am here. And this is not to end on a sour note, by the way. It is a good thing. It is a victorious thing. It is a jubilant thing that the people are still alive, that they are still kicking and fighting. And I love that. And I want to kick and fight with them, even though I am strictly nonviolent. So in the metaphorical sense, I want to kick and fight with them because it's a beautiful thing. Keep it alive, keep it going. It deserves to be kept going, especially considering the very negative efforts that colonizers and settlers put into trying to make sure it didn't. Very happy that we failed. And that is my video for today. You decide for yourself whether that ended on an upper or a downer. And I will see y'all tomorrow to talk about the next section, the heading of which I have not read yet, the heading of which is youth programs. Good. Educate the youth. Love it. All right. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye. Mwah.